It's time to shed old skin and declutter for the Year of the Snake 2025. Hi, I'm JJWalsh, and this is Seek Sustainable Japan podcast. Welcome to 2025. It's January, which is a perfect time for me to share some goals for this year of the snake, as well as highlight positive insights from Japan to give you a more proactive slither start to the year rather than a defensive coil. Speaking of snakes, a beautiful improve your life philosophy I've heard from my friends and neighbors for the start of the year is to focus on leaving behind the past and set your sights on embracing new things. This then makes it a great year for you fans of efficiency queen Marie Kondo, as one of the aims of leaving the past behind is to declutter. We should aim to reinvent ourselves. Just as the snake sheds its old skin, get rid of the things you no longer need. So 2025 is the year of the declutter. How do you feel? Yes, finally, I say, with great intention. I will make this year the more vigorously declutter my house. I'm going to open closets I haven't gone into for the most of the year, last year, and get to that back of the shed I usually avoid. How about you? Any piles of storage in your house worthy of a rethink? But how to do it is always the question in Japan, as we do not have the Goodwill charity vans and shops to take carloads to like we can in the US. I'm always very jealous when I visit my friends and family in the US, and you can just drive things to car parks where they've got charity vans set up, or in the UK, you've got all these lines of charity shops that will take your donations, or even anonymously, you've got these donation boxes. We don't have that in Japan. There are some free share community groups, there are flea markets and secondhand services I can make use of in Japan, but I also need to do more research to find out how to throw things away, which really are just garbage that we have lying around. I've put things off for years because garbage disposal is tricky in Japan. Each area has different rules and regulations about garbage disposal. Some you have to pay, but most you just have to find the right place to take it to. Japan is renowned by visitors and new residents as such a remarkably clean country when you walk the city streets. Most homeowners and sustainable businesses, you'll see them with their staff out cleaning in front of their businesses before the workday begins as a part of their community duty and responsibility. That's a lovely part of traditional Japanese businesses and community culture. However, if you scratch the surface, even here in clean Japan, you will find that sometimes people here will dump difficult to get rid of garbage along the beautiful countryside paths, in abandoned houses, or along lesser used mountain roads. I've even seen some abandoned cars which become difficult to dispose of garbage centers. Maybe they're lazy, but I bet some of these people who do this are just completely fed up trying to figure out the strict garbage rules in Japan. Of course, it's not worth dumping waste because of damage to the environment, danger to the wild animals that live in the forest that don't know what to do with your toxic waste. Also a burden for people living in the rural areas. And of course, the heavy fines to pay if you are caught dumping anything illegally. Now, one good resource of information and support is actually the local dump. If you take a carload of garbage to the dump, they weigh your car as you go in, and the helpful staff will take what they can and give you advice for things they reject. On the way out, they weigh your car again. So they are keeping data for how much is brought by members of the public. It's part of our tax system. Now, usually the larger non-battery, non-electric items are okay, but there may still be recycling charges needed for things that have batteries and chemicals like air conditioners, which require online registration and reservations for pickup. Now, most of this online reservation system, you can use Google Translate or other apps to help you understand how to do it. But still, it's a little bit tricky, and sometimes it's PDFs, so it's more difficult to use the translation software. Now, most areas like ours have 3 different garbage days: burnable, which is incinerated, light plastics, and PET bottle plastic drink bottles, most of which is also incinerated at a higher temperature. And then they have twice a month pickup for landfill or recyclables. Now, recyclables, we have cardboard, paper, glass, and metal, which are a great resource for local municipalities, as these materials actually have reuse value in the supply chain, so they can get money when they pick up these items. Now, I learned a lot about garbage issues in Japan when I visited the WHY Center and Hotel at the zero waste town of Kamikatsu in Tokushima on Shikoku Island in Japan, where they have a diversion from landfill rate of 80%, the highest anywhere in Japan, and it came out of need. So I'm linking the video that I made here about interviewing the amazing Terumi Azuma and Akira Sakano, who started a lot of the efforts they're still doing now there in Kamikatsu. So they, once again, let me repeat, they are diverting from landfill or incinerator 80% of all their waste. Now, it's a small town, but still, you have to have these good sustainability strategies in place if you want to have a chance at aiming toward reducing our waste, which is a big burden for cities, of course, in terms of cost, but also in terms of labor. And we're having a labor crunch in Japan. Now, on the other side of the ocean, I also learned a lot from visiting the recycling center in San Francisco of RECOLOGY. I took the RECOLOGY recycling facility tour in 2019, and that was amazing to see all the things they do, including mandatory composting. And that is a commonality between the small town Kamikatsu in Japan and San Francisco, big municipal area. They both have mandatory composting. So that's a really easy, quick way to reduce your waste. Yes, you can dig it into your planters. Yes, you can dig it into your garden. Even you can consider composting as a way to reuse your food waste and improve your soil, reduce your waste that you're putting out on the curb by 30%. Try it. I did, and it was really revolutionary for our home waste issues. I guess I'm officially a garbage geek. At least I do enjoy visiting places like RECOLOGY and Kamikatsu, which have a more ethical view of how to put to work more sustainable garbage strategies. So I guess you could call me ethical garbage disposal geek. I don't know. We're going to have to figure out a new term for me. The less good garbage, unfortunately, the things we should try to buy less of or find other ways to reuse because they go out on a landfill pickup twice a month. Now, this is usually mixed material plastics like plastic and metal, disposable. They call them disposable. They're not really disposable. They go to landfill. Umbrellas, a variety of hard plastics, many things from buckets to styrofoam containers to ceramics, And then often things that are mixed, so like some styrofoam and plastic containers together, some glass and plastic, some metal and plastics. When I visited Kamikatsu, the mixed material garbage is one of the biggest challenges for separating and disposing things properly. Ceramics is another interesting thing that goes to landfill, which I only realized when I visited a pottery workshop last year. And it was a big surprise. So if you've got ceramics, it is made from natural materials, and it does last for a really long time. So if you can find a way to reuse it, for example, in our local gardens, the gardeners are reusing old roof tiles, which are ceramics and pottery, as edging around the garden, which looks lovely. So I've also heard from some organic farmers who use old ceramics and pottery. They grind it up and they use it as a kind of rubble in their garden walkways. That's another great idea. So these things, instead of sending them to landfill, how could we possibly reuse it in some way? And often it makes things better, more beautiful as well. I do miss Daigomi Day, when large items were put out, and many of us garbage geeks, we would go around next to many of the recycle shop staff, go around vintage hunting when we went around looking for items we could take and reuse, and we would share information. I would call my friend if I knew they were looking for something. They would call me if they thought something in their neighborhood was worth having a look at. It was fun. It was like a giant area-wide free market once every couple months. And I miss it. And I know why they stopped doing it, because it was a big burden on the cities to pay for all of that to be taken away and disposed of. But man, it was a great way to see how people were reusing things. And many of us, I think, especially as times are a bit tougher now, people have much less disposable income. I think it's time to bring back Daigomi and see if people would actually be willing to take a lot more used things instead of buying new, because we're all at a bit of an economic crunch right now. Now, rural Japan entrepreneurs Dani and Evan Benton have become Japan garbage and reuse experts. I love watching their videos and talking with them. They are always well-researched sticklers for reuse and resale or passing things on. It's amazing to see how organized they are when disposing of the piles of garbage and clutter which they find left behind in the abandoned houses they buy, renovate, and are also introducing to new potential buyers from their channel and website all across the world. It is fascinating to see what they find, but I am also grateful for the insights on how to reuse and also how to dispose of the things they find. And they share all of that information on their website and YouTube channel. Definitely check out their blog, especially this one I've linked below on saving vintage treasures. I wonder if I could hire them to help me clean out my house and shed. I would love to have them here for a day, walking around and giving me advice and helping me organize things that I could reuse, resell, and things which I need to dispose of, and give me insights on how to do that. This is a real skill. I'd be willing to pay you guys if you're listening. Dani and Evan, let's get in touch. It's great to use existing services to pass on things that we no longer need. I'm thinking now, for example, of who to offer our kids outgrown bikes to as they have younger kids, who might want to take our old snowboards now that it's winter, and which secondhand shops will take our old but still good shoes and jackets. This clutter we no longer use might be useful and wanted by other people, Buying or getting hand-me-downs reduces our costs and reduces waste while extending the life of valuable materials. There's so many people, planet, profit, and balance wins here when we're thinking about passing on things which are still good and still can be used and loved. It might be waste to me, but it might be a treasure to others. Isn't there a famous old saying like that somehow? I can't remember exactly what it was. If anybody remembers the expression, please write it below. Now, decreasing PFAS and plastic in the home is part of my declutter effort this year. Another declutter aim is to complete the transition from PFAS, forever chemicals lined nonstick pans, even our rice cooker, to ceramic, metal, or cast iron alternatives. I asked at our local Edion electric store, I asked which rice cookers did not have the PFAS coating, and I was amazed that she did the research and then she pointed out a new cast iron rice cooker series that they now feature, which is non-toxic, and yet it's still non-stick, but it's an enamel coating available from Vermicular. I hadn't heard of this brand, but I did a bit of research and looked on their website in Japan as well as their American website. And it was a bonus to find out, wow, it's amazing, high quality cast iron pots, pans, and rice cookers. Also, all of it is made in Japan. It looks like you can even visit the flagship store for cooking lessons, tours of the factory, and even go for a meal at their restaurant in the stylish vernacular village that they've created. I have pinned it on my Google Maps for the next time I'm in Nagoya, which is Aichi Prefecture. It's right on the Shinkansen line, so not too hard to get to. According to Vermicular USA's website, they say the safety of our customers is of the utmost importance to us. All vermicular cookware is free from potentially toxic materials like PFOA, PTFE, and PFAS. Most of us know PFAS, as well as lead, cadmium, and other toxic metals. I've linked the Vermicular USA website below, but you can also find them with any Google or search engine search. Now, Mamacation.com also has a great article listing the best and worst of the non-stick and non-toxic rice cookers. And you can get some more options there. Now, reducing my use of plastics, which lead to microplastics in our food and waterways, which both lead back to our bodies as we scrape off fragments as we use them in cooking, which gets into our bodies, as we scrape off plastic fragments down the drain, as we wash them. So while I stopped buying any PET plastic drink bottle things years ago, it is almost impossible to avoid plastic packaging in most of the food we buy still. There's hardly anything you can buy without any kind of plastic packaging. So I aim to change what I can and want 2025 to be the year I completely transition away from any plastic cookware and servingware, changing from plastic to wood, metal, ceramic, or glass. Now, actively choosing to avoid plastic in your kitchen is a skill that quickly develops because once you start spotting plastic sources in your kitchen, it's hard to stop. Here are some of the most common places plastic is making its way into your cooking and into your body. Plastic cutting boards, cooking utensils, spatulas, ladles, slotted spoons made from plastic, spice storage, olive oil bottles, cling wrap, Tupperware, plastic cups, coffee thermos, instant or highly processed foods. Now that information is from hardwoodlumber.com. Thank you so much. It's everywhere and it's hard to imagine how to get rid of everything, my advice is just start with what you can, and when you see options, change it out. Now, it's costly to buy everything new, so I was happy to find a nice selection of ceramic, glass, and metal kitchen gear from the secondhand shops like Book Off and 2nd Street in Japan. I was also excited to find a reasonably priced family-run local woodwork shop on Miyajima Island, Hiroshima's sacred island, which I often go to on tours. That is keeping up the tradition of making handmade ladles and spoons, all from beautiful local wood. Thank you so much, Alex. What a great tip. Now, Costco and IKEA in Japan also now have ceramic and glass-based storage containers. The tops are still plastic, but I feel like we're making progress here. Reusable beeswax wraps, like from Bee Echo, has really cute designs, are more readily available if you look for them in health food shops, organic grocers, international import shops. You often find them. But the ready-made and overly plastic-covered packaged food, still impossible to avoid here in Japan. Anybody finding any way to avoid that? I would love to hear your tips. Now, champions of preservation, keeping the historical and culturally rich traditions alive. Of course, it's worthwhile effort to declutter and discard that old snake skin. But on the other hand, there are many great things here in Japan that need preserving. There are too many old, beautiful buildings, artisan culture, and traditions being lost every year in Japan. So it really lifted my spirits this month to read in the Japan Times Sustainable Japan section about a family's effort to preserve the ancient art of Waka poetry, keeping up the family house, educating students, locals, and visitors on the culturally and historically rich practices of Waka poetry, preserving ancient artifacts, and rebuilding a crumbling old kura storehouse using traditional methods. These are some of the ways the Reizei family is maintaining their legacy so beautifully. Now, what is the traditional art of Waka poetry? An earlier poetic style, apparently, than the haiku. The Waka poetry style comes from China and follows the ancient 5-5-7-7 syllable stanzas. Many of the themes are about love, war, and ancient court life. Waka, an ancient form of poetry consisting of 5 lines in a meter of 5-7-5-7-7 syllables, played a foundational role in the development of what is now known as the Japanese spirit, influencing everything from the tea ceremony to no theater, NOH, and incense making, and to the modern Japanese lifestyle. Now, that was a quote from the article about this family in the Sustainable Japan Times magazine. The Reizei family, headed by Kimiko, the daughter of the 24th head, the family is going to great lengths and personal costs to preserve the family estate as well as their legacy, which includes the last remaining intact imperial court noble home in Japan. Now, according to the Japan Times article, the family were not given any funding from the national or local government to preserve or repair any of the traditional buildings, important books, and artifacts. So they have incorporated a public interested incorporated foundation to help offset some of the property tax burden and follow through with their aims to preserve both the intangible and tangible cultural assets of their Waka heritage. Kimiko Reizei spoke of her intention to find a way to sustainably rebuild the family's Kura storehouse, despite its 300 million yen cost. So 300 million yen would be about 30 million US dollars. Is that right? Or 3 million? 3 million US dollars. Anyway, Google it. 300 million yen. It's a lot of money. And lack of support from the government. It's really shocking when I read this article to read that a representative from the Japan Agency of Cultural Affairs can have so little regard for preserving cultural traditions, as they suggested replacing the existing beautiful traditional Japanese Kura storehouse with a concrete building fitted with air conditioner units. Can you believe that? And Kimiko, thank goodness, Kimiko Reizei has a lot of ethics and principles and a passion to preserve her heritage and tradition. And in the article, she's quoted as saying, concrete buildings don't last for 100 years, so we would have to pay for renovations every few decades. In addition, it would require air conditioning, which uses power, and that would present a challenge if the power were cut off, Kimiko explained. On the other hand, we know that earthen storehouses last for 400 years, with at least 5 known examples that have survived since the Edo period. They have excellent fire resistance and durability, and self-breathing earthen walls keep the internal humidity and temperature within a natural range, making them ideal for storing cultural assets. I love her. I want to meet her someday. Mud wall construction techniques are also used in making castle walls, and so there is the added benefit of preserving those techniques for other applications at a time when they are rapidly being lost. Kimiko Reizei, she deserves a prize just for that paragraph about how to preserve a more sustainable Japan heritage. Thank you. Oh man, what a great article. Thank you so much, Sustainable Japan Times as well. Thank you for featuring the amazing Kimiko Reizei. Now, at the moment, it does not look possible to visit the property in Kyoto. However, it is possible if you feel like you would like to. Feel free to donate to the efforts to restore their traditional storehouse called a Kura via their crowdfunding page here. I'll put it below, in hopes that it will be open to the public someday once the restoration work is complete. But what a beautiful part of their legacy to preserve culture, traditions, but also support local artisans who will be hired to rebuild that and to pass on the knowledge to everyone involved, not only the masters, but their apprentices as well. Now, Kimiko Reizei, she says she continues to visit Kyoto schools also to teach Waka poetry because it is an important way to understand both the ancient and modern Japanese spirit. I hope both Waka poetry and the lovely Reizei property, artifacts, and library will be preserved for many years to come. What an uplifting story. This really made my day when I read this. It's just so many beautiful, sustainable Japan wins in this story. Now, as you consider your personal goals and passions to pursue in 2025, I leave you with an excellent example of beautifully translated Waka poetry I hope you will enjoy. You can find many more lovely examples like this on this website I'll link below called Brief Poems. They have a great blog, which includes Waka poetry. Now I'll read the Japanese and then the English translation. Iro miede utsuro momo wa yo no naka no hito no kokoro no hana ni zo arikeru. How invisibly it changes color. In this world, the flower of the human heart. Beautiful translation done by Jane Hirschfield and Mariko Aratani, and it's available to view on Brief Poems. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you're having a great start to 2025 and look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.